It's hard to believe that it's been 10 years since the devastating hate crime at Mother Emanuel AME in Charleston, where 9 parishioners were murdered by a white supremacist during a Bible study. 3 years after that tragedy, Reverend Eric Manning reached out to Rabbi Jeffrey Myers when his Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh lost 11 worshipers who were gunned down during Shabbat services, and the two have been friends ever since. Just in the past 2 months, 6 people have been killed at houses of worship in Minnesota and Michigan. According to the Violence Prevention Project research from 2004 to 2024, 487 people were killed during shootings at religious congregations and religious community centers across the U.S. Our next conversation brings together these 2 leaders whose faith communities are models of resilience and hope. Please welcome the Reverend Eric Manning of Mother Emanuel and Rabbi Jeffrey Myers of Tree of Life, who join Middle Church's Reverend Jacqui Lewis in dialogue.
I don't want to sit in the middle. Put me in the middle, Jeff.
Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
I'm honored to sit with you for this conversation. I know that the room wants to hear you both reflect on where you are today. How do you process that tragedy, and what are you thinking about in this moment?
Wow. Okay, so what am I thinking about in this moment? As I was talking with Jeff on our ride in this morning, initially, when I came to serve Mother Emanuel in June of 2016, there wasn't a point of reference, right, to how to navigate and lead a congregation through the healing process. Subsequently, of course, when it happened there at the Tree of Life, I wanted to reach out to the rabbi therein and to just offer assistance. Now, of course, years later, these instances are becoming more regular. We thought that that would not be the case, right? And no one ever wants to be in, I use air quotes, this club. No one wants to be in this place, but we are. We thought that it would get better, but now, as we've already heard and we've already seen, it continuously is getting worse. So my concern is that we are on this downward spiral where we are no longer reflecting on the importance of our collective humanity, understanding that we are all created in the image of God therein, and all of us should be treated with such dignity. And it seems like we're missing that now.
We are. Gun violence in the United States tops all gun violence around the globe, and it seems like it's an epidemic. And when it happens in a house of prayer, a house of worship, it is extremely galling and heartbreaking. I'm grateful for your leadership.
Thank you.
I am so grateful. We, some of us left a conference the day that shooting happened at Mother Emanuel and got in a car and drove down to bring hope, prayers, love as best we could. How about you, Rabbi? What are you thinking about today?
Well, I'm mindful that this coming Monday is the 7th commemoration. And for those that are unfamiliar with the Jewish calendar, ours is a lunar-based calendar. That means that when we commemorate the anniversary of a death of a loved one, we do it by when the date falls on the lunar calendar based upon the corresponding English date of that year. So what it means is that this year, that corresponding date is November 8th. So an unusual thing that only occurs in the Jewish community is that we'll observe the commemoration twice. And we're most likely the only city in the United States that will have 2 dates to commemorate death, meaning the 27th of October and then November 8th. So for me, it's a day of immense pain. At some point along the course of, it could be October 27th, it could be the day before, it could be somewhere in that time period, I'll be laying in bed that night, and the videotape, I know I'm dating myself, will start to play. I was on the 911 call. I was there that day. I saw it happen, and I'm a survivor. I should probably be dead. I survived.
Thanks be to God.
The tape of it will play. I was on 911 for 56 minutes. I've heard the call subsequently because I was prepared for the trial. So the whole tape plays, and I can't stop it. I can't make it go away. So I have to have that 56 minutes of that experience plus the 2 or 3 minutes beforehand. So it starts first with that moment when I recognize that it's not just some peculiar sound, but it's gunfire, which sounds nothing like TV drama. Once you hear an AR-15 live, that sound never goes away in your head. And the fact that I was the last person to see these people alive, and that there was nothing I could do to save them because they were in the rear of the sanctuary, I'm in the front. In synagogues, and I'm sure in a lot of houses of worship, the people come earliest so that your elders, they like to get their seats. It's also a social component of their lives. They have walkers, they have canes, etc. I couldn't save them. There were a few people I hustled out of the front, but I'm the last person to see them alive. Yes. So I carry with me for the rest of my life survivor's remorse. Yeah, there have been occasions where I say to God, why me? Why didn't you just make me number 12? I can't do this anymore. But I recognize that God brought me to Pittsburgh, not to do what I thought I would be doing, but it was God's mission of promoting healing for the community. I've said it many times before that when God calls, you don't send God a voicemail. My mother's called 5 times since I got here. Her, I'd put on voicemail. But God, she's giving me 92. God, you don't put the voicemail. So that's the mission that God has put me forward to do. But if I could, I just wanted to give like maybe a 90-second intro as what brought us together, but
Please do.
But not only that, but to me, what keeps us together.
Okay.
I was sitting myself that Monday or that Tuesday, scrolling through emails. Our servers had kept crashing because on my email account, I got over 10,000 emails, which made it crash. So I'm just scrolling on my phone, and you know, when like one of the old-fashioned one-armed bandits, when you raise the lever and it stops, ching, 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 it just stopped on the email. There's some divine finger on my phone. It wasn't me. It just stopped there. And I'm going, Mother Emanuel, I know that, but how do I know that? So it was an email, and Eric is telling me he's coming to town. I'm thinking, oh, lovely. I've met, I don't know how many hundreds of people. I have no idea who they are. I have a stack of business cards like this. I don't need another person to be able to welcome. And I tried to give a polite email response. No, I'm coming. So something told me I need to sit down and meet with this man. We sat for like 2 hours in the hotel, in the restaurant over coffee, just talking. And I learned this wonderful phrase called the ministry of presence. Mm-hmm. And that's why he was there, which has become part of my vocabulary. And it was at that time that we became, as he's affectionately used it, brothers from another mother. And then he asked me, because I had the last funeral that day, having had a week of funerals, sometimes 2 a day, could he come to the funeral? I said, no, you're not going to come. You're going to recite the 23rd Psalm, and then you're going to share some words of hope and encouragement to the community. So imagine the look on the 2,000 people in this sanctuary when a rabbi walks out with a black pastor. And I came up and I said, I believe in angels, and you're going to probably think that, oh, this poor man, they need to take him away now when this is done. I said, no, I believe in angels. God sends angels for unique reasons that we never understand. I'd like to introduce you to my angel, Pastor Eric Manning. So that's what brought us together. But what keeps us together is our shared resilience and our hope that the majority of humanity is good. We never get to see the majority of humanity because, and we could talk about it more later, sadly, the interesting part of reporting is always the ugly, dirty side of America and the world. the good stuff we never get to see. We both know there's good out there, and we're the ones to continue to look for it and to promote healing wherever we can. So that was the short version, probably
I
not
love
too
that.
short.
I think that deserves a little. That's great.
With that said, let me then, if I may, I know we may
you
off
can.
script. I guess we're just going
We're
organically.
doing our thing. Yes.
What happened on that day, and I remember leading up to that week, because it was just so much hatred in the air. I mean, it was just, and I preached a sermon that previous Sunday, Your Words Matter, and a newspaper picked it up and said, Pastor Mother Emanuel is angry at, leadership. Your words matter. The whole aspect then is what I went through, even a year removed, right, of coming to serve Mother Emanuel. I didn't have someone to reach out to me to kind of say, hey, now you are that guy. These are the things you need to be mindful of. And so for 2+ years, I went through the pain of learning, the heartache of learning, and I did not want this new guy to go through that. So, I asked, reached out, and Rabbi tells that story, but I wanted to make sure that everyone understood that it wasn't me trying to get that few moments of fame. It was just to be present to help another person in leadership who was now in this place and now in this space, right? So in essence, I was trying to be my brother's keeper, my brother from another mother. And when we met that day and people were asking, well, why are you here? Why are you doing this? I'm just here for him. And that was it. And next thing I know, he's asking me to do some other things. And I was like, okay.
Just putting you to work, huh?
Yeah, brother flies up from Charleston tired, but I'm here to, anyway. And I think that realistically shows the organic nature of empathy, right? Rabbi and I were talking about that today. We care, and I love this guy, right? And I don't say that because I'm sitting in a room of a bunch of people who expect us to say that. There's a genuine love between a black pastor, right, and a Jewish rabbi. Two different walks of life. But, I'm always reminded of Martin Luther King's quote, right? We may have all arrived in different boats, but we are all now in the same boat. And can't we just remember that?
Can't we just remember it? Yeah.
Can't we just realistically begin to tap into what draws us together, as opposed to having so much anger and divisive language being spewed out there, right? So Rabbi and I always chat. And God bless you.
God bless you.
May the Lord bless you and keep you.
Make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you.
And give you peace. Yeah, all of that.
Give him a Kleenex.
That's what I'm talking about.
And I'm thankful because as long as, we are together, as long as we breathe, we can continue to have hope and share that message of hope with others.
And
I love that.
He's my pastor, so when I have problems, I don't call another rabbi, I call my pastor. And when we have the same sort of problems, because we're in the religion business, you all have the same problems.
Yeah.
I'm his rabbi.
Can I get in on that? Can I?
Sure, why
You
not?
want to join in that call? Yeah, sure.
I need that.
Okay. And I'm going to say one other thing, and I don't say to embarrass him, but to just tell the love I have for this human being. I was the first witness to testify in the trial. I testified for 3 hours. The first hour and a half was educating the jury, and you need to know this, it was from 20 counties in western Pennsylvania. Not one of them had ever met a Jew.
Wow.
Yeah, that's not as bizarre as you think. It's not. Recent surveys shown that only 40% of Americans have ever met a Jew. Yes. So my job is to educate them within an hour and a half of basic Jewish practice. So when they're hearing Jewish vocabulary of like the talit, which is the prayer shawl, a yarmulke, which is Yiddish, or a kippah, which is Hebrew. It's the same word, and to educate them, because future testimony will use this language because it's part of who we are and what we say. And so that was the first part. The second part was to talk about my experience and to use the call to 911. I had never shared that story with anyone. The U.S. attorneys did not want it shared so that you would not potentially pollute the pool of jurors with information that might lead to a mistrial. So I said to my wife, this is what's going to happen. Do you want to hear my story now? And she said, no, I want to hear it at the trial because I only want to hear it once. She had no idea what she was in for. So this man called me, says, when are you testifying? And I told him, it's the first day, I'm flying in. He sat and he held my wife. We all know each other. Held my wife during the testimony. I couldn't look at her. It was hard enough to give the testimony when you're telling a jury that you've done the final confessional and that you expect to die that day. So I didn't look at my wife. He held her. So I'll be eternally grateful to this beautiful human being.
Amen. That's beautiful.
I brought one.
Thank you. I'll take those. Can I just ask a follow-up to those beautiful stories of friendship in a time of incredible animosity, divisiveness, horrific hate speech, where many of us are retreating to our own tribe and locking the door behind us. And here you have this cross-faith. I don't know when the Jews became white, but a lot of my Jewish friends are calling themselves white, Rabbi. But let's say across race, across faith, across circumstances. How do you think your friendship affects your congregations? How does it help them heal? What do they learn from your friendship? And what can we learn from your friendship?
If I may, I guess. So at our 10-year commemoration, I intentionally asked Rabbi to be the keynote, right? And that was intentional because I wanted Mother Emanuel to remember and the community to remember that what happened on June 17th, 2015, while horrific for our congregation and our community, we are always looking for ways to continue to hope and to build bridges. I know a lot of times we don't want to build bridges anymore. We just want to retreat, as you've already so eloquently said, to our various corners and call it a day. But that's not what we are called to do. We are called to meet on our collective level of humanity. So I think when people see Rabbi and I together, they feel a sense of hope, right? Tragedy brought us together, right? But love keeps us together.
Beautiful.
And I think when we understand that, then hopefully in those key moments, people will have enough sense to just be silent for a moment and see if they are able to do it, then ask the question, why can't we? So the congregation at Mother Emanuel looks at this relationship, and even, I believe it was June of, or May or June of 2019, I think, members of Mother Emanuel came to Pittsburgh, just again for our congregations to worship together. And I think it means that we have to be intentional about our healing, intentional about making our communities better and resilient, and understand that it's not our differences that makes or creates these superficial spaces. But if we can learn how to embrace our differences and meet on the collective basis of our humanity, then perhaps we can begin to tear down these superficial walls.
Love that. Our text says that Rabbi Jesus is our peace,
Yeah.
that breaks down the walls, divides humanity. I'm wondering about, in this current context, with all that's happened in Gaza and all that's happened in Israel, and we're not supposed to talk about those kinds of things in some places, but here we are, religious and news people, and we can. Does your friendship, does your relationship shape your politic, is what I'm wondering. Does your relationship, does the individual nature of knowing each other affect the lens through which you look at the politics and the geopolitical politics?
No.
Say more, Rabbi? No, just no.
No.
Okay, that's good. That works.
Because the changing landscape of the world doesn't impact the core values, which are hard and fast, because geopolitical currents change every day, like our undergarments.
But
and,
this relationship stays the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great metaphor. I don't know where that came from. I was wondering about that one. And they just change at whim and at will. But the core values that I believe that we exist as humans and what our faith teaches us, those are hard and firm, and those don't change. So the narrative has to bend to fit who we are as people. And if it isn't comfortable with that, it's discarded.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, and what has taken place, as Rabbi will say, I mean, it can't change our relationship, right? Because a lot of times people will say these outside influences can change your dynamics. But again, it's that love. We think that love is supposed to just always reinforce how we feel, but it's that genuine love, right? That empathy for another person who is created in the image of God.
Yep.
And so whatever takes place in the world takes place in the world. And I don't know all the folks in the world, but I know him.
I love that. That's perfect.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
how I treat my brother, how I treat my friend says what I am really concerned about. So no, it has no bearing, no change. And I'm not going to say shamefully, but I've had to share that with a number of people that they looked at and said, well, how are you and Rabbi handling this? The same way we handled everything before.
Yep.
We are just friends. We love each other. I can't see. It doesn't matter what you can't see. That's not going to change our relationship. So I think when we begin to understand that, then again, we can be part of the collective body that builds bridges.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's right. New York is a particularly beautiful place, though it is also a difficult place in some ways. But I think we have a lot of interfaith collectives, a lot of interfaith relationships. In fact, when our church had our fire, we spent almost 2 years starting on an Easter Sunday in a synagogue, right? So there's a beautiful opportunity to build these kinds of relationships. My curiosity is always almost the obverse. So I want to get to a question about media now. But we get to see this story being told, and unfolding and being told. It's clear, the closeness you feel, and our eyes see and our hearts feel. In my living room with a Jewish friend or a Muslim friend, everyone's not going to see that story. The media often, as you said earlier, pick up the story of the conflict, pick up the story of the dis-ease, pick up the story of how we're not relating. So I'm wondering about the people in your lives observing this closeness. Does that change their hermeneutic? Does that open their heart? Does that open their healing potential? I'm wondering if you think of your story as changing the story, not only in Pittsburgh, not only in the Carolinas, but like around the nation. Can people be changed because you are who you are?
I think when faith leaders model what we want to become the norm, we're giving them permission to be able to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Just as when, as an example, our elected leaders model what I call not uncivil discourse, but uncivil yelling. They give us permission to behave the same way that they behave. So I think our country needs to see more of civility, of brotherly love, of empathy. So by modeling it, we're saying to our parishioners and any who'll listen, we give you permission to do this, and we're going to show you how to do it. And by us modeling it, we're saying, now we want you to take that with you and not just merely think about it, but we want you to model it in everything that you do, because that's what we need more of.
Yeah, and that is, the media has that responsibility, but I realize that we live and survive on certain times on the number of clicks that we get. I don't understand it, but I understand. I think that's how it works. And these type of stories don't necessarily gain the traction. And that is very sad, right? I often talk with my wife in the morning. I look and I say, why can't, I won't say which station I watch in the morning.
Don't tell us.
I won't do that.
Okay.
But I said, why can't they just lead in, I'm getting ready to, they have 90 seconds, and now y'all figure out who that is. 90 seconds of what's going on in the world. What would happen if just for that 90 seconds, they talked about the positive things that are happening? Just for 90 seconds. Don't lean into, we have a lot of stuff going on, but pick up the story that someone met someone else along the way and showed them compassion. They didn't have to, but they did. They made a choice. How would that change our narrative for our day, as opposed to hitting with this, and then running the stories of this, and this, and then when they tell a positive story, okay, that's nice, and then you go right back to a negative one. What would happen if we became responsible? I'm not a journalist, I'm just a pastor, and I'm not offending anyone, but we became responsible people to say, this is what we are now choosing to share. Because we know how negativity divides. We just now choose to show you what it looks like. The possibility of building bridges, the possibility of meeting each other on a collective basis of our humanity, the possibility of just loving your neighbor as yourself.
Wait a minute, somebody said that.
Yeah, he did. So from that particular perspective, what would happen? And my wife and I just talk about that. And I found out today that I got a place in Jersey Shore to go to. Yeah. So I'm going to go to Jersey Shore. I'm going to hang out with my dear friend. And when he retires, I'm not going to say that I'm retiring soon, but I'm retiring soon. I'm just going to hang out. And I think that that's important, right? And when he told me that, I was getting ready to reach my pocket, get a tissue, because, again, it's just that type of love that we don't readily experience anymore. So.
Can I jump on it? I'll make it quick.
Yes.
I'll be unrabbinic and quick, which are oxymorons. I believe that news, in whatever way people gather it, even sources that I don't think we should call news, but yet there are those who call it the news, impacts the psyche of America. And if we're continually fed just negativity, how can it not impact us? So for me personally, after the shooting, I stopped watching the news, not out of an egotistical sense, because yes, I was the news, but because I couldn't watch it. I never saw the film footage. The first time I saw it, I lost it, because I'd never seen it, and it was terribly traumatic to see the footage. So I don't watch the news, because I think that it does impact us negatively, and I know there's plenty of good happening in the world. I had a conversation with a particular network, I'm sure you'll know who it would be, that once a year they gather to honor people who do good. I said, do you mean to say there's only one day a year people do good? What happened to the other 364 days a year? Aren't there people that do good more frequently? We need to share those more often to be able to model that there are far more good people in the world than there are not. I still firmly believe what Anne Frank said in her diary, that she still believes in the goodness of human beings, and so do I.
That makes three of us, I think. I think I'm supposed to turn out now and get some questions from the audience. Am I in that right place? As we do that, I want to take just 10 seconds to say, I think we, who are the consumers of media, social media, have the power to change the story as well by what we decide to choose to share, to amplify, to our algorithm will respond to what we're responding to, the stories we tell as well. So I'm just encouraging us all to be the sharers of this good news story with gratitude.
I'll give you one quick example of how media decide this.
Yeah.
60 Minutes decided to do a story on Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Leslie Stahl was the reporter who came in. I wanted to share one incredibly beautiful story that many of you may not know because the media didn't want to pick up on it. And it was a good story. 36 hours after the massacre, there was a vigil at Soldiers and Sailors, a major memorial, big building in downtown Pittsburgh. And the executive director of the Islamic Center, whom I'm good friends with, announced that they had started a GoFundMe page. Quickly, within the course of literally 5 or 6 days, the page raised $250,000. And what did he announce? That money will be set aside to pay for all of the funerals because Jews and Muslims bury their dead quickly. Granted, in this case of a crime, it took longer because of the collection of all of the evidence and so forth. But the fact that they did that was beautiful. That's a story deserving the light of day. 60 Minutes didn't even want it. I said, fine, here's what we'll do. I'm not going to be on the interview. Cut me out and tell this story instead. So they made sure that that story was told. But it didn't make the light of day for most media because, no, they like the salacious, ugly stuff. That's more interesting than that beautiful story. And to me, that's the backwardsness sometimes that media has. This is a beautiful story that should be told.
Thank you, Rabbi. Do you all have questions?
We have one right here.
At the ready. My name's Lisa Benenson. I work here at Trinity. You all spoke with Father Phil earlier, our rector. I was having a conversation with him the other day, and I said, so what's your favorite thing about Jesus? And he said, forgiveness. And so I wanted to ask you, what is your experience of forgiveness? How has it impacted you since the tragedies in your houses of worship? How has your thinking about it changed?
I guess I'm first.
You're up, sir.
Me? Okay. So it is no secret during the bond hearing in 2015, we've all heard the stories. You may have read about it in the various books that are out there therein. The families came to the bond hearing. The judge, magistrate took an unprecedented task or point of asking the families to speak. The first person to speak was Nadine. Nadine was Ethel Lance's daughter. And Nadine said, not verbatim, but close to, you took something precious from me, but I forgive you. Just like that. Years later, I'm not pushing his book, but in Kevin Sachs' book, Mother Emanuel, in the epilogue therein, he talks about Nadine's response, and she says that she did not plan to say that, but she just said it. A spontaneous moment that I believe Psalm 115 talks about, of a God moment, right? God got the glory out of that bond hearing. Mm-hmm. And I know a lot of times we don't want to report on that, but that's the truth therein, because again, if you listen to Nadine, if you listen to Reverend Thompson, if you listen to Cliff or Chris, if you listen to anyone who was there on the bond hearing of that day, they tell almost the exact same story. So through my 9 years now of serving, over 9 years of serving Mother Emanuel, I have come to understand what it means to pick up the mantle of forgiveness. And it is not for the faint of heart. It means you have to do certain things that you are not comfortable with. And in our discussion, a lot of times, we have to do just that. So I think a lot of times we get into, this level of, well, how do you handle it, how do you discuss it, whatever, as opposed to just taking a step back and saying, you know what, it was a God moment, I'm good.
Yeah.
And there's no politics associated with it. People can either choose to forgive or not. If they do choose to forgive, then you are releasing so much negativity and hostility. So I've learned from their responses. But as a same token of learning, then I have picked up a mantle of servanthood in that particular perspective.
Thank you.
I remember when Polly came to Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Polly is the one survivor that the shooter pointed his AR-15 at her and said, I'm going to spare you so you can tell the story.
Right.
So she's the survivor who has to live with that for the rest of her life, and she told us how she forgave. Judaism has a different perspective on forgiveness many of you may not be familiar with. From a Jewish traditional perspective, forgiveness is not something that someone who's been wronged freely gives. The perpetrator of an act of evil has to ask for forgiveness from the person you've wronged. So in the case of Tree of Life, the shooter cannot ask 11 people, they're dead. So he can never be forgiven specifically by those people because they are dead. So what about anyone else who, as a victim of that? He has to seek forgiveness. He has to be someone who's able to come forward and say, I was wrong, and I apologize and ask your forgiveness. I can tell you from experience, from having been in the courtroom for most of the trial, this is not a person who shows remorse. So it's unlikely that that might happen. Is it still possible? Of course it is. That's up to him. So many might ask me, do I carry the baggage then of that? And the answer is no, I don't. That's not something that troubles me or bothers me. If anything, I don't really even think about that. More, I just think of just the day-to-day living of being a survivor from a mass shooting. That's enough baggage. So I don't carry wondering, am I going to be asked for forgiveness? And I'm comfortable with that because that's the milieu that I've been raised in my entire life. So that's my comfort place.
Thank you, Rabbi. Maybe there's another question?
We have one.
Yeah. Hi.
Been to a lot of panels, maybe hundreds of religion panels. I think this is probably the most moving panel I've ever seen. So just thank you for doing it, and congrats to RNS too for making this happen. But yeah, I want to ask you about that. Like, there's something so important about a public dialogue like what you've done here, and I'd love to hear you reflect, if you would, about how you decide, what of this sort of thing to do versus what to keep for yourselves. I mean, the rabbi talked about his wife only wanting to hear the story once, right? Like, you could think, maybe it's a lot for you to do, but on the other hand, like, the world could get a lot out of this. So how are you thinking about what to make of your public dialogue throughout the rest of your careers versus what maybe doesn't need to be public?
It's a wonderful question.
Great question. Well, I'm retiring July 31st, 2026, so by then I'm done. No.
And then you're going to the shore.
But seriously, I came to learn that my mission was to heal. And to me, I've found many paths to do that. One of them has been to reach out in the aftermath of Tree of Life to other faith leaders who are impacted, whether it's the rabbi in Boulder who's had the Molotov cocktails tossed, spoke to him several times, reached out to the Archdiocese of Minneapolis because the Archbishop is from Pittsburgh. So reached out through channels there, reached out through the Church of Latter-day Saints in Pittsburgh to be able to reach Flint, Michigan, to know that's why I'm here. And both Pastor and I have talked about when the need is there, we're ready to pack a bag and drop what we're doing and go there. We almost went to New Zealand from the shooting at the two mosques there. It didn't work out for a host of reasons, but we're ready to do that because we know if it's a faith leader, the problems that they have. So to me, my mission is, and it gives me healing, that I'm able to, shall we say, pay it forward, to be able to see someone who's in the early stage of the trauma and the pain of a mass shooting. If I can help them navigate that and be that shoulder to cry on, to be that person to give a hug if they're comfortable receiving one from me, it gives me healing to be able to do that. I just thank God that God's given me the direction and the strength to do that. You should know, if you go by the statistics of the Center for Mass Violence in Charleston, South Carolina, formed after the shooting there, that according to them, there are 600 mass shootings in the United States every year, 12 a week, 3,000 the past 5 years, 3,000 communities that are traumatized. I can't help all of them, but I'm going to do what I can to help whomever is there that would like my help. To me, that's what God wants me to do. I'm the reluctant agent, but I'll do it.
Yeah, and it's the whole aspect of servanthood, right? You know, at times you put yourself in uncomfortable positions to serve the greater community, right? And you know, Rabbi and I talk quite a bit on a lot of other fronts, and it's that whole aspect of just the willingness to serve, to say, "Here I am, God, send me." Right, and at times it's challenging. You know, reached out right after these most recent mass shootings, and as I shared with my wife, I said, you know, at times I grow weary, but I understand this is my task, so I embrace it. Again, it's not easy, because when you do that, you have to unpackage what you may have already healed from, and then you revisit where you were. So you become vulnerable, but you become vulnerable for a good cause. And I think that's what we're lacking, right? We don't allow ourselves to become vulnerable to help our fellow brother or sister, whomever it may be. And that's the other aspect, right? Again, we had a wonderful dialogue coming in today, and you know, Rabbi's always shared with you when he's retiring, I'm not going to give you late breaking news, because I'm sure somebody's going to say, what, he's getting, yeah, no. But in season, my time will come to an end. And I said, well, you know, I said, Jeff, well, how would our relationship be afterwards, right? About the people coming afterwards, how would they do this? And I just looked and I said, well, to be very honest, I guess we are who we are. We will continuously be friends. We will continuously do whatever we need to do. I think it's not predicated upon where I'm serving, because I think we are both serving the greater good. So, you know, if anyone calls us and our calendars are available, you know, we'll be there. But I think it's something that we do not necessarily shy away from, but we embrace it, because again, it's genuine for us. It's not made up. It's just two old friends hanging out, and I am always grateful to be in his presence. You know, he got here in town before me, about 30 minutes before, and he was waiting for me at the terminal. Right? Now, somebody may say, that's not a big deal. Yeah, it's a big deal to me, because down through the years, this brother has been there for me. And it makes a world of difference when you get off a plane and you see a friendly face and you embrace like you haven't seen each other for a minute. So I'm immensely grateful for for, of course, RNS bringing us together, and immensely grateful for you all giving us an ear and sharing with your wonderful questions.
Another quick 15-second answer to that. Poway came 8 months after. It was the 8th day of Passover. One Jew was killed, Lori Gilbert Kay. Even the community in Poway does nothing to remember her. But I said to her daughter, Hannah, whom I know personally, Tree of Life will remember your mom every day. So every day, the 8th day of Passover, every year, I light a memorial candle in my home, and I remember Lori Gilbert Kay, because every life is precious. She isn't a statistic. She's a human being. She had a family, and she needs to be remembered.
Wonderful. We need to wrap just with our gratitude for your generosity, for your kindness, for your story. Thank you.